art. Podcast with the heart and the essence of the growth. The power's in the people. Without you, we ain't equal. What we lack is ego. We're back now, so here we gon' run the show like Arsenio. Episodic, our rituals, minds change through visual. Representation of our nation and its differences. Some explanation of our uniqueness and innocence. Mass media's intention is to desensitize. We raise the wise, and knowledge is power. Without it, we turn coward and proud of a known product. Like we could take it with us. I wish the greats were still alive and here with us, but it is what it is. We're left here to share our gift, and that's precisely what we'll do with it. Shape shift and fluidly, we can pass this test and still in our unity, elevated through stress. Yes, MediaScope when you emotionally broke. Settling our knowledge and conversations, don't make them yours. What we run is Olympic, not your hands on the torch. Take it easy like Sundays on the porch. MediaScope when you emotionally broke. Settling our knowledge and conversations, don't make them yours. What we run is Olympic, not your hands on the torch. Take it easy like Sundays on the porch. Yeah. It's up to you. You got the torch now. MediaScope. We're here for you, and you. We got it all. Tech, music. We got it all. Tech, music. We got it all. Yeah. Tech, music. We got it all.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the livest media, tech, and pop culture show in the land, in my opinion. This is MediaScope, all things media, tech, and pop culture. I'm happy to be here, as per usual. You know I'm always happy, and I'm even happier because it's Wednesday and I get to be with you. What a treat. What an absolute blessing. Well, if you don't know who I am, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tachi, media professor, filmmaker, media content producer, also a journalist, and we're live in a lot of different places. Facebook, what's up? All three Facebooks I'm live on. What's going on? Also, YouTube, or the tubing of the U. How are you? Excuse me, I sprayed a little bit there. But YouTube, how are you? Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. If you are watching on LinkedIn, I am happy to be linked in with you. Your comments don't populate, so I'm going to have to physically look, but thank you for being here. Also, if you happen to be watching on IG, the Instagram, welcome. It is so good to have you. If you are watching on Roku, what it do. If you happen to be watching on IndieSoupMedia.tv, I am happy to see you here. And finally, tomorrow, for those of you who are going to have the good fortune of listening to this on Gospel 107.1 FM in Nassau, Bahamas, and the rest of the Caribbean, we wish you a multitude of blessings. It's so good to be on that station. Well, folks, we have another guest. Look at that. 5 weeks in a row, we have had guests, and I am so thankful for every single one of these people that have come on. And by the way, this individual that is coming on now is not new to the show. He is a friend of the show. He has been here before. I think it's probably been like 2 or 3 years since he's been here, but we had to have him back. I've always wanted to have him back, and he graciously said yes. Before we keep going, let me give you YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you happen to be watching on the tubing of the U, why not? You're already here. Just like and subscribe. I have a whole bunch of great stuff. And if you're watching on Indie Soup Media, lots of great shows on Indie Soup. Make sure that you like and subscribe there as well. These are our hours and where we are. So make sure that you are plugged in. All right. So what we don't want to do is waste time, though we do like wasting time here. I would like to introduce our guest for today. He'll be up right after this. Here we go. Ariel, I'm in such awe.
Oh, nice.
When I grow up, I want to be you. Ariel, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show again. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It was just a matter of when. It was never if, because I knew you were going to come back. You are like one of my favorite guests. I love all my guests, but I don't know. You're one of my favorites.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
That's cool to hear. Yeah, I love all of my guests though, but I'm especially glad to have you back here again. So you know what we're going to do? We
Mhm.
are going to go ahead and take some comments really quickly before we get into who you are. So stay right where you are, Ariel.
Will do.
Here we go. All right. So Shelly Shells is here. She says, Happy Wednesday. Oh, yes. Happy Wednesday to D Carpio and to us. Bryson Leach is here. What is up, Bryson? Also, Urbanist. I mean, how see, you see, that's why he's an awesome guest. He's also watching from Facebook. And Gwen Weinblatt, I hope I said your name properly, is here. Welcome, Susie. Hey, how are you? Welcome, Susie. It is so good to see you. For those of you who wonder why I'm so excited, I also watch Ariel on his many live streams and consume his content. So this is always a treat for me. Let's see what's happening over on the gram. Urbanist is also on Instagram. What? Go ahead. iFish is here. She says, Hey, Dr. T. DJ Kenny Price, what's up? Beautiful reflections. It is good to see you. TW, hello. Turtle 722, welcome. Zuber 7, what's up? Kelly, how are you? Carmen, how are you? Now, as you know, the comments have messed up for me on the computer, so I'm going to have to look on my device for IG. So stay tuned. And if you have a question, you notice I don't get to it, put it in the chat again. So that's what's going on in my neck of the woods. Let's get back with Ariel. How are you? Let's take this down. Here we are. Ariel, introduce yourself to the audience because many of us already know who you are. Some may not. So if you would be so kind, introduce who you are.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm a filmmaker and content creator that has been making videos about the history and architecture of the world for the past 7 years. I've traveled all around the world, showing cities like Rome, Milan, Paris, London, Seattle, everywhere, and New York, my own hometown. And I've been doing this. I do all types of content. I do short videos, live videos, vlogs, and full length documentaries as well.
You have a lot of content out there. So let's go back to the beginning. You are a New Yorker, and not just a New Yorker, you are a New Yorican.
Indeed, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how being a New Yorker and being Puerto Rican has had an and not an infect. That's not the word, but an influence.
An impact. That's right. Yeah, it's actually very interesting because I am happy to be in a long line of very famous Puerto Rican like entertainers out there, which is awesome to be. I don't pretend to be among their company on the same rank, but it's nice that there's already a lot of well-known New Yorkers out there, like Lin-Manuel Miranda, Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin lived here for a while, Mark Antony, the list goes on. But in terms of my personal experience, it was growing up with this diversity. I was able to really see the world before I end up really traveling, which was a great blessing. I lived in the neighborhood of Jackson Heights, Queens, which still continues to this day to be the most diverse neighborhood in the entire world. So I saw all types of cultures, from Indian to Colombian to Ecuadorian to Nepalese to my own native Puerto Rican. And it was great to grow up in that multicultural environment because it made me very, very open-minded and also very prepared to go to different places around the world and share the beauty of those places.
Absolutely. So what was your first trip? What was the thing that said, well, two things, your first trip and then the first trip you documented? What was it about travel that made you say, this is something I want others to share in as well?
You know, that's a good question. So I've always been between New York and Puerto Rico, but my first trip abroad was after high school. When I graduated high school, it was Mexico City. And Mexico has some overlap with Puerto Rican culture, but it still felt like a very, very different country. So that was awesome to see in person and just experience a lot of social faux pas which I think is always part of the travel experience, is to see what one is normal culturally speaking, and two, what the other country is actually not that normal or a bit weird, or etc., or vice versa. And the first trip I ever documented, ironically, I was experimenting with Snapchat back in 2015 when I traveled to Athens, Budapest, and Istanbul. I was already making like travel Snapchats, but these were just to a few friends and trying to impress a girl that I was dating at the time.
Okay.
Like all things in life. And then it didn't really, nothing turned out of it. So I did have my hand in short videos beforehand, but where I started really professionally making content abroad was going to Helsinki, Finland. Was my first trip abroad. So I started in 2016, Urbanist, and I quit my 9 to 5, excited to start a new endeavor of starting a travel show where I explore different cities around the world, showing people the history. And I quit without savings. So I couldn't travel. So I had to travel within New York, which was a great blessing because New York, there was so much to uncover within this city. But for some reason, in the back of my mind, I've always been randomly curious about Helsinki, Finland.
Okay.
Because my uncle, who was a captain in the military, he randomly also went to Helsinki. I think they have a military base over there.
Okay.
So I was like, "What's there?" He basically didn't tell me anything. It was like it was just nice. It didn't really stick out to him, but I was just so curious. So luckily, I reached out to Visit Helsinki, their tourism board, and they invited me over, and it was my first trip abroad for content.
Is that something you would recommend, going back to the fact that you quit without savings? Is that something that you would recommend to people, or did you learn from that, I really should have more of a buffer?
It's like two simultaneous lessons at the same time. So that could seem rather contradictory. I learned to follow my heart. The heart always speaks more wisely than the mind, even if it seems illogical or irresponsible. So my heart told me when I was nearing the end of my office job career, my heart said that I just wanted to be outside. I wanted to work something outside where I'm exploring. I wanted to make videos. But at the same time, I also learned that, in this is a business ultimately. So entertainment, content creation, documentary filmmaking, they're all businesses. So ultimately, you do have to be financially responsible. So I also learned that lesson. I learned that lesson the hard way. The other lesson I learned in a very beautiful way, where I found my passion making these videos. It took me a few years to learn that I also have to be making good business as well. So that in tandem, I think makes for a very beautiful career and also a very beautiful life.
Well said. Well said. It just worked out well for you, so that's good.
Yes. So I would not. So to summarize, I would not recommend people to do the same thing. It's always better to follow your own heart in your own way, but also at the same time, always have a strong foundation. So make sure you're starting any endeavor with a very strong foundation, because yes, you can wing it, and yes, you can go with the flow, but it could be a lot longer period of suffering and turmoil. You could just shorten that by following your heart and doing it wisely.
Follow your heart responsibly. Good advice.
Exactly.
Good advice. So I want to go back to Helsinki for a moment. What was there? What did you discover in Helsinki?
You know what? I end up leading ultimately to my documentary series, The Athens Urbanist, which was just released last month. 6-episode documentary series about why Athens is a vibrant city. So New York, growing up in New York, I am spoiled in terms of city. So New York is one of the largest and most vibrant cities in the entire world, and also very famous and well known. So everyone knows almost everyone knows New York. If not in the movies or comic books or TV shows, everyone knows New York. But going to a small city like Helsinki, or not small, like a middle city like Helsinki, which is 2 million people. So it's pretty big. It's bigger than most US cities, but it's not as big as New York or as Mexico City or as Tokyo. I learned that these cities are not so well covered by travel vloggers or documentaries or basically much content. And
Mhm.
and to me, it's felt like a treasure trove of making content, because almost no one knows much about Helsinki. So it was cool that I was able to show these places that felt exotic enough that people were intrigued, but not so exotic that I had to basically um, amplify or kind of glamorize an adventure. So a lot of Americans who end up traveling to like very foreign countries that are foreign to our American perspective, like India or like Vietnam or Philippines. I've noticed in a lot of travel content, it's for a portion of it, it's glamorized. They
Mhm.
say, "Oh, we're going to this strange new place in India. We're eating the crazy street food. Oh, look, all the people are super friendly." They often glamorize a lot of aspects of that travel. I can't really glamorize Helsinki, which is great.
Okay.
So that's why I loved about it, and I continue to do the same thing. I found a lot of my success going to these cities that are not stereotypically famous, like Sheffield, England,
Mhm.
or the smaller parts of Italy, or Athens, Greece, or Thessaloniki, Greece, as well, which is another good example. So that's what I've learned.
You also did County Cork in Ireland, which I really
Yes.
enjoyed. And so most people are not thinking about, if they're going to Ireland, they're not necessarily thinking about places like County Cork, but you did that. So you seem to relish in the smaller, off the beaten path places to take us, which I appreciate.
Yes. Those off the beaten path places, I think, to me, are fascinating. So first of all, I'm following my own fascination when
Yeah.
making this content. I have to be fascinated enough so it comes through on camera. But beyond that, people might not be interested in it on a superficial level. They'll be searching for um, craziest places on earth, and they'll probably go to like the Himalayas or go to Tokyo or go to New York or Machu Picchu. But but I like challenging people's preconceptions of a place. So when I went to County Cork, it was awesome because I ended up finding out that it was basically the center of the butter trade for nearly 100 years.
Yes.
Excuse me. So that blew my mind, and I made content of it, and it blew other people's mind, which was awesome to see.
No, it did. And when you do, for those of you who don't know, first of all, I'm going to put up his credentials so that you can follow him. But he does these wonderful, in addition to short form content, he does these wonderful live streams on YouTube when he goes out and about, and you feel like you are there with him. I mean, that I actually found him. For those who don't know this story, I found him on YouTube doing you did Diker Heights during Christmas one year. And I was
Yes.
like, this is phenomenal. Just the way you were doing it. And then I had the opportunity to actually kind of meet you because we were on a panel together in on Clubhouse. And so I was like,
Right.
Urbanist? No way. So I was super fangirling and was happy to meet you there. So thank you for all of that because you take us on a journey with you.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. It was cool that we were at that Clubhouse panel together because We were with another live streamer,
Yes.
producer, Cliff Sobel,
Cliff
and
Sobel.
what we did together, we were definitely ahead of our time. So if people don't know, as you mentioned, I do live streams, and live streams mostly are on a mobile phone, iPhone in my context, with a gimbal, and I'm walking around the city using mobile data. But we did experiment. We tried to push live stream to its limits, which we really did, doing a multicam live stream on the streets. So 3 cameras on the streets, various locations, all on the field, walking around the city, all live streamed. And yeah, that I love that kind of experimentation when it comes to media. I think it's worth experimenting and worth trying things, even if they don't prove to be popular or what people would want to see, at least on the onset. It's worth experimenting because you end up learning a lot in terms of media, of how to tell better stories and how to tell more fun stories in interesting ways.
And I think it's interesting because often it makes sense. If you're a content creator, you're often looking at ways to monetize it. So sometimes what you end up doing is making more of that content that seems to be monetizable. And there's other content that you make that's equally as useful, equally as value laden, but sometimes it doesn't get out there, or you don't make as much of it because of the fact that it doesn't get as many hits. So I like the fact that you are actually, doing some of the other things, because you need both. In my opinion, you need both types of content.
That's the trap of the content creator, is that they see what hits and what makes money, and usually they are in tandem. And then they think that they have to do only that, and they double down, which is indeed smart business.
Yes.
Because yes, you will make a lot, good money, good business in the short term. You also get a lot more followers and viewers. I've done that many times. But it's a trap too, because if you get too comfortable in that niche, there'll come a point where the algorithm stops caring about you, where audience stop caring about you, and where it's no longer really making any money. And then you're kind of back to square one. But if you already started experimenting while things were going well, and started dabbling in other types of content, dabbling in other stories, dabbling in other styles, then when things go downhill for one type of story, one type of style, one type of platform, then you can just immediately pivot to the next one and just keep going. And that increases a longevity in media. Any type of media, really, is to be that flexible.
Excellent. Thank you for saying that. These are nuggets for all of you out there that are content creators looking to get into content creation. Folks, we have Urbanist with us, also known as Ariel Viera, who is he's everything. He's a filmmaker, he's a content creator, he is a documentarian, he's also a Peabody Award winner, which is something that we're going to talk about in a few. We have some comments that I wanted to get to. Nisi Eve, welcome. Thank you for being here. Beautiful Reflections is here too. Hello. And she says that she shares a lot of your content, mostly about the African American history in New York City, which is ironically what he and your partner in crime won the Peabody for. Also,
we did. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching those.
Yeah, absolutely. They're wonderful. Mosby is here. Classic C Gems is here. Alicia B is also here. It says hello. Welcome. JP Lynchpin. Lovey is also here. Tarabesque. And I love your name. You know, I'm a dancer, so the Tarabesque. Love that. Arlene, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thinker the Barber. Niche Calc Smooth. And there's so many others. Let's get to some questions. First of all, Cat Yellow on YouTube says, I follow Urbanist. Cool guy.
Hey.
Indeed,
hey, Kat,
he
thank
is.
you so much.
Okay, so we got the balloons going here. There we go. Also, the Food Plane saying hello to Shelly Shell. Food Plane DS, what is up? What also someone who watches Ariel. Let's take I knew that DS was going to have a question. He is the question asker. And so he says this: Ariel did a fantastic documentary on Athens. What was the biggest challenge in filming the documentary?
So DS, aka the food plane, is indeed one of the best questioners in all of live streaming.
He is.
And him and a few others that are so excellent at asking questions make live streaming really not just fun and conversational, but deep, and where we explore something more than just the superficial. So thank you so much, DS. The biggest challenge when it comes to filming the documentary, it was not. I could have made the documentary by following a strict plan and by scripting it ahead of time, which for many documentary filmmakers, especially if you're doing a YouTube documentary, is the smart thing to do, is to script it ahead of time and start planning it ahead of time. I had to resist that feeling that I had to do that, because I did not want to do that. So I just decided to surrender to God, which was in my context, but you can reframe it whatever way you want to. Surrender to the universe, go with the flow, anything you would want to use that word. But I surrendered to God. I basically just said, I'm yours. I'm going to do whatever content will best fit whatever needs to be said. Which is a bit kind of tricky and might be very foolish in a logical context, because I'm indeed spending my own money to travel to Athens and to hire a videographer, editor, and then various people after that. But it really worked, because more often, serendipity and happenstance is way more entertaining than overtly planning a piece of entertainment. So I just met one person, and then that led to another person, that led to another person. All these interviews happen rather organically. And since I wasn't trying to shove a particular story or a particular opinion or narrative upon Athens in this context, the good stories came to me. The beauty of Athens came to me. And I would say, in a very practical sense, when you think you need to really plan something and you don't want to, listen to your heart. Plan just the necessary things. Don't risk your well-being or your finances. But beyond that, sometimes it's worth taking a leap of faith.
Love that. Surrender to God. Interesting. I want to follow up on that, but first let me say, see Tracy Teach, hello, Soror, how are you? She says, absolutely. And Lucky 331 is here. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Mess Williams also joined. Welcome, Mess Williams. We also have the Canadian contingency here. Out and About, or shall I say Out and About, from Toronto, is here. Welcome. And I grew up across the bridge from Canada, so I'm very used to the Canadian dialect. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And the food plane loves it. Amazing. Folks, if you're just joining, you are in for a treat. I am here joined, no, the other side, there we go. Here joined by Urbanist Ariel Viera, who is a travel vlogger. He is a documentarian. He's a filmmaker, a Peabody Award winner, and just an awesome person all around. Let's get to, I want to move forward a little bit, and I want to talk about now this series that you won the Peabody for. First of all, how did that come about? How did you, is the award something that you were nominated for? Is it something you submitted for? How did that come about? And tell us about the Peabody, because I don't know if everybody knows.
Sure. So the Peabody Awards is basically the most prestigious award in America for storytelling, along with the Pulitzer. The Pulitzer, most people know the Pulitzer. It awards journalism and mostly journalism and writing. So those are two things. But the Peabody Awards, podcasting, audio and visual media, including now social media content as well. So the Peabody Award is the top of the top, which is a great honor. How did it come about? So I started covering the stories of African Americans back. Well, I've been doing it ever since I really started Urbanist, because I've always been interested in multiple communities here in New York City, but certainly African Americans have been extremely deeply influential in New York and our country as a whole. So back in 2023, early, I started covering it. A few stories that were kind of the darker stories of that part of those communities, which was the history of racism or riots or persecution. So I started covering the more grittier aspects of Black history in New York City, and those videos did really well. People were really, really intrigued by that part of history, because history is not all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately. And yeah, I thought this was fascinating. And then a content creator that I saw randomly on TikTok was talking about some other story. I forgot what it was. I think he was talking about the Tulsa race
Tulsa
massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really intense story. He was talking. I think he was talking about this, and I just immediately got hooked. His name is Khalil Green, and he runs Gen Z Historian. And I was fascinated by his content, specifically his history content, because this guy did not take history lightly, or he wasn't too emotionally fueled. He really respected the history and really went deep into it. And I gave him a follow, and then a few, like 2 or 3 months later, I found out that he's coming out to New York City, and he sends me a message randomly saying, "Hey man, coming to New York City. I want to meet up and maybe collaborate." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's collaborate." So our first video that we did was about the Civil War draft riots in New York City. And Khalil doesn't usually do, as far as I know, he usually doesn't do unscripted content on location. His style of content is usually green screen content, where he sits down at home and green screens over himself over images and video. And then I think he usually scripts his content. But I told him, let's make videos if you're willing. Let's do it in my style, because I think people will really love to see the actual places. So we did this video, and even though this particular location is no longer there, which was a Black orphanage that was burned down during the Civil War draft riots of New York City around the 1860s, at least we can still stand at the same intersection. And I think it's very powerful for people to know, even though this is now a glitzy Zara or other high-end stores, this used to be a very kind of sad part of New York history. And we proceeded to do this with various other locations. Ultimately, we did 6 videos in the main series, but those were out of about 10 or 11 videos. So in this 6 videos, we went to places like Seneca Village. So Seneca Village, which is African American neighborhood that was torn down due to build Central Park, the Museum of Natural History, and a few other locations. And those videos exploded, really. And Khalil is definitely the star in 5 out of those 6 videos. We split the storytelling in one of them, where it was rather convenient, because we covered the story of San Juan Hill, which was an amazing neighborhood that was located in modern-day Lincoln Center. It was destroyed in order to build Lincoln Center. It's also the main story of West Side Story. But this story was interesting because it was an African-American neighborhood half and also a Puerto Rican neighborhood. So we split the story in that context. But nonetheless, it was really cool. Even though I retread at least 2 of those stories with Kahlo, because I told them before myself, it was nice to have him tell it. And I think when it comes to storytelling, it is worth retelling stories, and it's worth having different people retell the same stories, especially when it comes to history. Because I could tell my version, my interesting insight on a particular part of history, like Seneca Village, but Kahlo brought his own insight, his own perspective into it, which is very important to hear. So those stories got millions and millions of views. They were followed by, they were liked and commented by very, very important people in media, in government. And very interestingly enough, they were liked by people on both sides of the aisle too, politically speaking, which in my channel, I don't veer into politics at all, which might be why it reached a very large audience. And a friend of Kahlo told him, hey man, the Peabodys are coming up. Maybe you should submit one of your works to the Peabodys. And Kahlo decided to take his friend's advice and submitted us to be in consideration for the Peabodys. Apparently, thousands of people submit themselves to the Peabodys.
Yeah.
And these are some of them are huge TV shows, podcasts with millions of listeners. Some of these submissions are big deals. Apparently, the jury only considers 1,000 submissions.
Wow. Well, so let me. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but what was it about your submission? Do you think that stood out with all the? I mean, I looked at the list of submissions. I was like, wow. What was it about your project that made it stand out?
So the Peabodys, their tagline is "Stories that Matter."
Okay.
So I would say that the topic about race relations in the U.S. is now very much what people are interested in all parts of America, basically, in all spectrum of from good to very, very bad discourse. And I think it just hit a nerve. It hit a nerve. People feel like part of history has been not told in its complete picture, that certain parts have been omitted on purpose, which there is some validity to that. And then, of course, I think a part of it is, I'll say my end of it. The way I see it is, our country is such a beautiful country, in my opinion, and we've done so many great things. And I think Black Americans haven't received the big spotlight on why America is such a great country. And I think a lot of people are hurting because the spotlight hasn't been shunned on this part of America as much as there needs to be more, in my opinion. So I think the Peabodys just are recognizing that part, that they deem as a story that matters.
And it definitely does matter. And I actually, for those people who have never seen this before, I actually have one of the videos. So I'm going to show that now. Yeah, I couldn't have you come on and not show your work. So I actually have one of the videos from the 6-part series that won the Peabody. Let's take a look.
Right here at 42nd Street and 5th Avenue was the site of the Black orphanage that was burned down during the Civil War. What happened here?
So back during the Civil War, the North needed more soldiers, so they held a draft in New York City. But if you were a rich white man, you could pay not to go to war. If you're black, you weren't considered a citizen, so you couldn't be drafted. So this left poor, working class, mostly Irish immigrants to be drafted in the war. And because the Civil War is about slavery, they blamed the whole thing on the Black New Yorkers who lived here, and they held a huge massacre where they killed over 120 black people. And they came here to the Colored Orphans Asylum Harlem served anywhere from 200 to 800 children, and they broke into with pickaxes and burned it down. Luckily, all the children escaped. None of them died. They fled to what is now Roosevelt Island, along with many other refugees. Most of the black people who lived here fled down to Brooklyn or up to Harlem, and the demographic has never been the same.
Wow, it goes to show that there's so many aspects of New York City history that aren't in the textbooks. Let us know, what should we cover next? Stay curious, my friend.
Wow. That's very heavy, and it's something that's very heavy to cover in a minute. I think that was about a minute. Is that correct?
Yeah, all the 6 videos in the series is a minute long.
How do you do that? How do you fit all of that history in 1 minute?
So that's part of the craft is I started taking short videos very seriously in 2020.
Okay.
However, it was mostly on TikTok where I found my initial success. And the thing is, on TikTok, you generally stories, videos up to 3 minutes worked well.
Okay.
TikTok has changed that since. Now TikTok has up to like 10 minutes or so. So 3 minutes worked well. I found it easy initially to tell a story between, say, 1.5 to 3 minutes long. That's where my comfort zone was. I felt like that was perfect enough time to tell a very compelling story about a place that would be in any other video 10 minutes long and cram it down to 3 minutes. However, 2022, when I was traveling 4 months throughout Europe, excuse me, a lot of the places I visited weren't really attracting that many views on TikTok. So my TikTok was kind of tanking because unfortunately not that many people cared. At least the algorithm didn't think that people cared about places like Lyon, France, or Nice, or I went to a lot of random places, Maastricht, Netherlands, which is crazy. Those are fascinating places. but yeah, those places weren't really hitting on TikTok. And then my live streams of certain those places was really stagnating. I wasn't getting that many views. So I came back from this epic 4-month trip through Europe, seeing some of the most wonderful things of that continent, and then realizing, oh my God, I barely got views, both in short form and live stream. And I was remiss that my Instagram was small, my YouTube was pretty small still, and my Facebook wasn't growing that much. But I was in the catch-22 because I came back to New York City. I did not want to do any more videos on New York at that time. I was sick and tired of New York. And I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to like explore New York City. I just wanted to stay home. So I decided, F it, I'm going to stay home. And I got bored and I started trimming down these 3-minute videos about Europe into 1 minute. And at first it was extremely difficult because it's relatively easy as an editor to trim a 5-minute story, a 7-minute story, maybe even a 10-minute story into 3 minutes. But I'm not sure what the mathematical concept is, but as it starts getting closer and closer and closer, it starts getting harder and harder and harder to edit. So going from 3 to 2 is difficult. Going from 3 to 1 is even more difficult. And then as you're going from 1 and below, it starts getting even more difficult. So it was really tricky. I had to cram 3 minutes of intense storytelling in 1 minute. But I just persisted through. And it took me weeks, like about 3 weeks, to just edit videos multiple times a day to distill epic story into its very bare essentials. No fluff, no filler, no redundancy. Every single second had to be packed with history. And it could, at first initial viewing, it could be really overwhelming, some of my videos, but that's the nature of this type of medium is that it plays on a loop. And that's the case on TikTok, and that's the case on Instagram.
Right.
So it often takes various viewings to really digest all the history. And I've cracked the code after about a month or two. I think about 3 months it took me. About 3 months of intense editing on a daily basis. I felt like I cracked the code. I found the way to edit an extremely packed 1-minute story. And the reason me and Kyle did it at 1 minute as well was in order to take advantage of all the platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Right.
And it worked because these stories, even though these stories are very nuanced. So by no means did we tell the full story. By no means should they be interpreted as the full story.
Right.
And these are very sensitive topics as well that will cause a lot of anger and a lot of heavy emotions. However, I think these stories are worth telling, and we found a way to tell them in a minute, and by at least eliciting some type of any emotion in the viewer, because these stories are so explosive, volatile due to their nature, because of all the negative stuff that has happened throughout history. If you elicit any emotion, ultimately I think it does good in the audience.
Yeah.
Because it gets people intrigued.
Yes.
So these stories, the comments, if you look at them, they go very ugly. There's very constructive, beautiful comments, very intelligent comments, and then it goes down into the deepest depths of humanity. It's a very wide spectrum. But if it elicits that type of emotion in people, that means a good portion of those people will look into other parts of that history and learn more about, in this context, Black America, which I think is very powerful. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's important. This type of work is important because, as you already know, history books are under attack in some school systems. So I think this type of short form content is good because it will spark the desire to want to learn more, hopefully, in some children. So thank you for doing that. Definitely. Let's take some comments. Susie says, I watch the short videos several times over so that I can absorb everything. Absolutely. I watch them more than once as well.
Hey,
Out
Susie.
and About says you found your niche. Absolutely. And the Full Plane has this question. You've done NYC for so long and covered so much of it. Is there any place you have left to yet to explore rather in New York?
Yeah, I did indeed have covered a lot in New York City. It's specifically African American stories that I've found that I could cover a lot more. I want to cover a lot more. So I still have yet to do videos like about Lewis Latimer, who was the African American engineer who worked with Thomas Edison to invent the filament of the light bulb. He's the reason why we have light today. His story is epic, so I still have to cover him. I would love to cover the history of hip hop. I've covered the history of Biggie, for example, but I want to cover the history of hip hop. And Weeksville, which is this very beautiful series of historic houses that are still well kept from the mid 1800s. And it was a middle class neighborhood of African Americans in the mid 1800s, and going there, it feels like you're stepping back in time. So those stories to me are very interesting. But also New York City is such a big place. There's a lot of other stories. There's stories a lot about Irish Americans. I just started learning about the making of The Godfather via a show called The Offer. And I realized, oh my God, there's a lot more history to Italian Americans aside from the stereotypical mafia stories and the stereotypical pizza stories. There's a lot more to that. So yeah, there's a huge variety of stories here. For example, Chinese American stories haven't been told too much in New York. it's a big shame, because there's not that many Chinese Americans covering history content in New York, which is a bit of a shame. And then anyone else hasn't really covered it either. So I've done my own videos, but they're mostly been live, so they've been a bit overlooked. But I hope to make more short videos, for example, Chinatown. Yeah, so there's a lot of stories.
Chinatown is fascinating. There's so much. New York City is fascinating. There's no place else in the U.S. that is like that. That has that level of multiculturalness, which is not a word, but I'm making it one, that has the level of history, that at one point was supposed to be the capital of this country. So it's very interesting indeed to watch you cover all things New York, which is how I found you. Let's take some comments from Instagram. Why Terry, what's up, says it's called the Weeksville Heritage House.
Yeah.
And Divine Right, hello, my dear, says, so intriguing. Congrats on getting it down to a minute, because I would just give up. D. Faye is here. Hello, my dear. D. Faye is here. Lucky is clapping. We also have Mimi Hinton and Celise who have joined us. Welcome, welcome. Celise says, I love New York City. I'm looking forward to going there this weekend. So Celise will be there, or Miss Elise will be there this weekend. Wonderful. Do you do tours?
No, I don't offer tours.
Okay.
My shtick is video.
Okay.
But I'm always happy to recommend tour guides, because there's some excellent tour guides out there that are also New York City video content creators as well. So I'm always happy. DM me. I'm always happy to recommend them. Or you could download my New York City guide, and I also have a list there.
That he also has a New York City guide. But if you'd like to DM him, here is his information. I think I have it right. IG is at Urbanist Live, and YouTube is Urbanist Exploring Cities. Please make sure that you are following him everywhere. Definitely follow him on YouTube, because that's where you'll get access to the wonderful lives he does. And you can find the short form content on IG, but also on TikTok, right? And you are at Urbanist Live on TikTok as well?
No, I'm Ariel Viera on TikTok.
Okay, now see, I lied there. So he is Ariel Viera on TikTok. His just his name. So make sure you're following him in all the places you can, because this is, I mean, forget TV. We have this kind of stuff.
Oh, so,
yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let's go on. We have like 8 minutes left, because I want to make sure I respect your time. We are an hour show, and I'm trying my darndest to stick to an hour.
Oh, you are? I think the best conversations are the ones when you cross that precipice of like, oh, it's getting too long.
You're right. But what I had to realize is there are shows after me on my network, and I can't just go on forever. So in respect to the creator who was after me, I will stick to this. But doesn't mean we can't have the after the show.
Right.
Let's see. The food plane says, Ariel is a coffee gourmand. A little birdie told me you are planning a coffee documentary. How is that coming along? Do tell, sir.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on an hour-long documentary about coffee in New York City, and it's in the editing phase, and it's coming out really well. Editing is the most time-intensive part of the process. I filmed that coffee documentary basically in a little bit more than 2 weeks. But editing, unfortunately, due to the nature of editing, it takes about a month or two, or maybe 3 months to really get cracking and make a great edit.
You are inspiring me now, because I myself am a documentarian, but I haven't done anything in a while because of all the other things that I'm doing. But there are a few things that I want to do. You already know I'm a dancer, so I'm wanting to make a dance film. That's one thing, to get into dance film. And then there's some music documentaries I want. So you are inspiring me to pull out my camera and get cracking.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for the coffee documentary, I originally started as a vlog of top 5 coffee shops. But then I realized, wait a minute, I can't. Every vlog about top 5 coffee shops in New York is the same.
Yeah.
I unfortunately am not going to do something that different if I were to stick to that idea. So I just got fascinated and started interviewing coffee shops. I was like, wait a minute, this is fun. And I just reached out to more and more and more and more until I have about 20 hours of footage. And yeah, that was a lot to edit. So it took me a while to say, I'm not going to do it myself. I'll hire my editor so she can help me out with it. And yeah, sometimes you just have to follow your fascination and not really think about if it's going to be a finished project or not. In this context, it will be. But I think the beauty of filmmaking is mostly in the making. And it's okay to start making something even if you're not fully confident that's going to be finished. Because that's where the fun lies, is that uncertainty of trying something and seeing if it'll go anywhere.
Well said. I've got two things myself that are unfinished. So I understand. I understand. And after a while, I'm like, I probably need to move on from this. So I finished things since, but those first two were left unfinished or fallow. Sage Logan is here. Sage Logan NYC. How are you? Also, Pretty Kitty Publishing is here. Hey. And she asks this. She says she's a longtime follower of Urbanist. Do you find the Schomburg helpful?
I don't know what Schomburg is. What's that?
The Schomburg, you're talking about the library museum that is in New York City. They have a lot. It is an African American library and museum. They have exhibits, and there are a lot of historical documents and things there. So the Schomburg is definitely someplace that's worth a visit.
Okay, yeah. I think someone did tell me about it like a year ago. So yeah, I would love to cover it. I gotta reach out to them. So yeah, I haven't been there yet, but that sounds fascinating. In terms of libraries, I actually don't use them too much. I'm not a historian, and I don't consider myself a journalist either. I'm an entertainer first and foremost. And part of good entertainment or be a documentarian is research. But most of my research is tertiary resources, meaning that there are like books that written about that part of history, or podcasts or lectures that discuss that specific topic in history. And in order to do my due diligence, I see if there's a firsthand source about that topic. I don't dig that deeply into the firsthand sources. But I see if the history being told is valid, and if it's accurate, and that's how I do most of my research. So it doesn't require me too much to go into a library and do that deep digging. I would not be opposed to it, but it is extremely time consuming. So I'd rather make more videos from history that can easily verify more quickly than try to find new history that requires deep digging into firsthand sources. Maybe once I have a team, like once I have a researcher, maybe I could really uncover new history, which I think would be fascinating.
You should offer internships, Ariel.
Yeah, that is a good idea, actually. Now, yeah, with a Peabody name, it's worth it for the intern, which is nice.
No, I think even without any award, it's worth it. So honestly, it's something you should think about, because there are so many people, and we could talk about this afterwards if you're interested, that would be willing to help you in the endeavor, and it would be good experience for them and you.
Oh, cool. Okay, I would love to talk about that. But yes, you're right. Always bringing on new people is worth it. I have no regrets bringing on my editor and assistant editor. And I've worked with another editor before then, and they've all done great job in making my content in ways that I wouldn't have thought of myself.
Right.
And really extending the scope of many of these videos and documentaries.
Awesome. Awesome. Birdie Lynn is here. What's up, Birdie Lynn? After Dark with Johnny Ray is here as well. John Copeland Jr., 1/4 of Gentleman's Corner, which comes on tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, is here. So he's just getting himself ready now, I'm sure. Welcome in. Absolutely. And let's see, we have like just about a minute left. So I want to take this is a good one to end on. Well, first of all, this is it, but always good to see you both. You both have inspired me. Thank you, Food Plane. You're amazing. You are amazing. Let's see. And so Cat Yellow Ranger asks, any future destinations for end of this year, beginning of next year?
Yeah. The top of mind is Japan. I've always wanted to visit Japan, first and foremost.
Yes.
But a friend of mine who is a TV producer encouraged me to go to exotic destinations. So I talked a little bit. I said that I really preferred covering these cities that are not so popular, but are kind of, easy to visit, like many parts of Europe. But maybe I'll start considering going to crazy places in the near future.
Crazy places, that will be fun. I'd love to see some live streams of that. Janet, hey, how are you? Says the Schomburg Center is 515 Malcolm X Boulevard at 135th Street in Harlem. So I'm sure you're very familiar with where that is. Oh, and Yellow Ranger has this question: would we see any dance docs from me? And would they go beyond Alvin Ailey? You know what? Yeah. Now this is the interesting thing. I did want to audition for Ailey a few years ago, but I didn't start professionally dancing until I was older, and so I missed the cutoff for Ailey. I think their cutoff is like 24 or 25, and I was 27 when I started dancing professionally. So I was like, okay, well, never mind. That's okay. So, but I'm really intrigued. My background is modern and African, so I'm really intrigued in those two dance forms. So yeah, maybe a dance doc will be coming up. Something will be coming up. So. Wonderful. Well, Ariel, is there anything else that you would like to leave us with? Any words of wisdom?
Any words of wisdom is of follow your heart. It's to do something that you enjoy, that you love. Don't get caught up in what you think you should do, what people want you to do, don't get caught up on all the superficial elements of life. Do what you love first and foremost, and it'll bring joy to others, as long as you're not hurting someone.
Bring joy to others. Do you?
Yeah.
Ariel, you are absolutely amazing. I am always enamored by your talent, just you as an individual, and I'm humbled that you said yes to coming back. So I hope there'll be another time that you will come back if I definitely ask you. Fantastic. Wendy. Hey, Wendy is here. She says, thanks and great to see you. And yeah, keep it authentic. We'll end with that. So of course, I'm going to ask you to stay for a moment as we end, Ariel. Everyone that was watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on IG, everywhere that you watch, also Roku and IndieSoupMedia.tv. Thank you so much for being here. In case you don't know, we are live on IndieSoupMedia.tv, which is my network, and we have a whole bunch of great creators. Before we go, I'm going to play the promo for it. Here we go. and that is Indie Soup Media. You can find us in a whole different bunches of places. And I'm excited to announce that we actually just hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I am super excited about that. Ariel, thank you so much once again for coming. Everybody else, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to end the way I always do. I love you for watching. I bid you adieu. You guys, myself, Ariel, and all of his wonderful knowledge and information, we are going to exit stage left. Until next week, cheers, guys.
Close the doors, walk across the corridor. We got something to show you. Media is our repertoire. Fed up with the same news, no channel to use. Cruise control mentalities. Here we offer you. We gon' show you other way. The content it never stays, but positive and uplifting. Once a week, the scope gifted.